Hello, this is Matt, and this is a tutorial about how to get geometry and textures from Blender into Godot 3 using the glTF file format. This is the advanced tutorial, or at least I'm going to call it advanced. This assumes you know the basics of PBR texturing, general game art workflows, that you can install scripts and append files in Blender, and then you know how to pack grayscale images into color images. Also, you need to have a basic working knowledge of Blender. If you know these things, this will be a quick tutorial on how to do this. If you don't know what any of this means, I'm going to make a longer tutorial. It'll probably run about 20 minutes where I describe the theory and the practice behind what I'm doing. So anyway, I'm going to start with having a Blender install which has this Kronos group exporter installed. You can get it at GitHub. And there are instructions at the bottom of the page on how to install it. So I'll go open up my Blender, and you'll see if I go to user preferences and testing and add-ons, and I can look for glTF, and it's enabled there. Now the second thing I need to do to get this to work is to append a certain shader from the Kronos glTF Blender nodes collection. So if you notice, if you downloaded this thing from GitHub, if you downloaded the exporter, you'll find PBR nodes in here in these blend files. So what you need to do for your own file is append one of the shaders from that blend file so it can work right or work correctly. So I'm going to go to append. And I've already got it opened here to this glTF2 principle that works with Blender 2.79 and above, and the node tree. And you need to append this particular node right here, the glTF metallic roughness. This is the one that matches Blender and Godot, and also probably will match Unreal Engine 4 at some point. So it's already appended in my blend file, so I'm not going to append it at this time. So then we'll get our cube, and this is going to be our standard cube, and this is what I'll export. So in terms of what we need to do is we probably need to start with a UV map on the cube. So I'm just going to open up the UV map editor in Blender, select the cube, just basically unwrap it, and then that's done. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change to cycles rendering. This only works if you're in the cycles renderer. This specific glTF node is designed to work hand in hand with the principled shader and the cycles renderer in Blender, so it's what's known as a synced workflow, where everything syncs up and the texture outputs and the general look of the file is the same across all of these different platforms. In terms of texture, what I've used is I've gone to Substance Share, and I pulled one of these wonderful substances they have available for free there, and I pulled a floor tile substance. And I've gone ahead and exported it. And the second thing you'll need to know about this is because of the way the glTF file format works, the values for metallic and roughness need to be packed into one file. So normally when you get an output from Substance or 3D Code or any of these other texturing platforms, you get one metallic roughness and one metallic file and one roughness file. So you can see that here, this is the metallic because it's a non-metallic substance, and here's the roughness. Now what you need to do is you need to pack these into one file. So I've gone ahead and used GIMP to pack this into a color file. And what needs to happen is that the metallic texture needs to go into the green channel, and the roughness texture needs to go into the blue channel. If you have these set up correctly, they will import to go correctly. Okay, so we're going to go back to our Blender. I'm going to go to the Materials tab. Actually, first of all, I'm going to rename this cube to glTF test. And I'm going to change the material to glTF test. And then I'll just assign that just to make sure it's assigned. So I'll back out to edit mode, to object mode, sorry, and I'll hit use nodes. And you need to find the node here. And where can I find it? Where it was just here. Alright. Apparently the blend file didn't save correctly, so if you run into this problem, you can just go back to append and reappend the glTF metallic roughness shader. Okay, So I'll go back to here and I'll find this glTF metallic roughness shader. And then you'll see all the inputs here. So I'll start with the base color, image texture, open. I'll go to my textures file and find the base color. And then I'll go down to the metallic roughness and I'll go to image texture, open, back to the textures file. And I call this combined in my particular workflow. You can call it whatever you want. And then do not touch these metallic roughness factors. If it's defined in the texture, that's what you should need to use. These are just for uniformly determining the metallic or roughness factors. Then we go to the normal. Same exact thing. Desktop. I wish Blender would figure out a way to save what directory you're working out of. Normal. And this one comes with AO, so I'm going to add the AO in the occlusion slot. Image texture. So all of that should be done. Now, if you're a Blender user and you want to see what this looks like on the node graph, should show up like this. But I'm working on this laptop and it's really tiny, so we won't deal with that. I'll switch this to material, so I'll make sure it's kind of shows up right. So that should be set. Now I have everything. And you know what? Just because we're here, another nice effect of the glTF exporter is you can actually do a multi-object export in Godot. So I'll just do an example of that here. I'm just going to hit duplicate on the cube, and I'll duplicate it on the x-axis. And then I'll scale that up a little bit. And then what I'll do is I'll apply scale and apply, apply a location for all objects. So it will export with this as the center of the file. So I now actually have two objects. So I'm gonna go up to export and going to export glTF 2.0. And I'll go back to my glTF test file and go to my meshes, and I'm just going to call it glTF test.glTF. And that should export. Okay, and notice I didn't actually touch any of the export options. You don't really need to. So then I go back to my Godot, and I'm using Godot 3.0 beta 2. This will probably work for any 3.0 release. I've already tried to do this once, so I'm going to remove that file and I'm going to make a new project. Oh, just an aside, if you run into problems, you might need to change the Blender units, where are they, to metric. I usually save to meters. So I'm actually going to just re-export that real quick just to make sure it saves to meters. I was having a problem where if this wasn't set to metric, Godot was importing no geometry, so it was importing incredibly tiny geometry like an empty or something like that. So if you run into that problem, you probably need to change this here. So we'll get out of Blender, we'll go back to here, I'm going to hit Browse, go up to Desktop, go to my glTF folder, and we'll just call it glTF test. Create. And you can see Godot auto-importing all of those things that just came out of the exporter. So if I go to my meshes file, you'll notice this actually copies all of the textures that I need, and it sets up with the glTF test material. Now, because of a bug in Godot's importer, you need to change one of the parameters from here in parameters from Lambert to Burley. This will give you the physically correct principal shader that matches with Blender. Then if I go through all of these textures, I've got the albedo, that's linked up properly to metallic. And you might need to change the channel here because this is metallic. I need to change it to green. And then roughness should be blue. And then normal map links up, not anisotropy, ambient occlusion comes with the AO map. So all of these things are linked and all of these things are great. So I'm going to start by adding a spatial node that I can link the rest of the file from, and then I can just import those cubes, and they come in like that. So they come in, actually I'm going to translate these real quick so you can see them a little bit better. Now you'll notice they come in as two objects and they're linked together. However, if I want to change this, I can also go back to the import and change this preset right here and to import with separate objects. So if I do that, and I'll re-import my scene, now I have two meshes. And I can bring one of those in, the bigger cube, and the smaller cube in. So that should be it. You have a multi-object glTF file that is imported successfully in Godot with matching textures and materials that you don't have to link up and tweak once you get the workflow working right. Thanks, I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Subscribe if you like it. I'm going to try to keep making more environmental art tutorials for Godot. Thanks.